happy to see all of now 160 and counting participants. We have over 400 registered for this session, and I can see that participants are still coming in. Thank you very much for joining us for today's session with Willis Towers Watson, Director for Talent and Rewards, Mr. Patrick Marquina. We're happy to have you with us, and we'd like to make sure that you get the best benefit out of your participation in the session. So just a few reminders for our participants. I see some more numbers are coming in, joining us. Please make sure that you're able to view the screen well on your laptops or desktops, whatever device you're using. There's the chat mode that you can use as well for sending questions to our speaker, as well as for interacting with other participants. My name is Lynn Mukhi. I'm Vice President 2020 for PMAP, the People Management Association of the Philippines. At the same time, I'm Vice President for Human Resources for the FINMA Group of Companies, a local conglomerate engaged in businesses such as FINMA Education, hospitality, cement, steel manufacturing, as well as other related businesses. We are pleased to have all of you here right now. I see 171 participants right now. And so that we may start on time, let me start with an introduction of our speaker, Mr. Patrick V. Marquina. You will see on screen his photo as well as a brief bio about him. Let me introduce Patrick to you. Great, all right, thank you very much, PMAP staff. I'd like to recognize our PMAP team as well, who's behind the scenes working to make sure that this webinar is a successful and educational one for you. So, Mr. Patrick V. Marquina is Director for Talent and Rewards of Towers Watson Philippines. Prior to this, he served as Senior Manager for Data Services for 4 years, where he was responsible for providing clients from different industries with information on pay and benefit levels through the Towers Watson Total Rewards Survey. Very reputable survey. I myself in our company has been participating in the Total Reward Survey of Towers Watson since way back 2010, 2011, and we do it every 2-3 years. Towers Watson also does various compensation and benefits reports and publications. How did Patrick start his career? He actually started as an HR practitioner, so he's no stranger to the life of a typical HR head. And he worked with one of the top local banks in the Philippines before starting in Towers Watson career as a pioneering Asia-Pacific Data Services team leader at the Legacy Watson Wyatt Data Management Center from 2000 to 2002. Thereafter, he ventured into the HR management practice with stints at Cementos Mexicanos, that's Cemex, and DHL Philippines, respectively. Throughout these years, he occupied various HR positions, handling numerous HR-related projects, including design of HR programs and policies, compensation and benefits, design and administration programs, expatriate management programs, employee relations, and recruitment. He returned to Towers Watson in May 2006 and assumed the Data Services Manager role in July of 2007. He was appointed as Director of Talent and Rewards in September 2011. Patrick graduated from San Beda College with a bachelor's degree in economics. So please everyone join me in welcoming to our webinar today on Are You Ready for the New Normal? Pushing the Reset Button, Mr. Patrick Marquina, Director of Talent and Rewards, Willis Towers Watson. Everyone, let's give him a virtual clap.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Lynn, and good afternoon to the members of PMAP, officers, as well as the attendees of today's webinar. It's a privilege to be part of your session today. And what we're sharing for this afternoon is a study that was conducted by Willis Towers Watson globally, and we're happy to mention that this is the first time that we're releasing this to a huge HR group of practitioners. So I guess this is the best venue for us to be able to share this information. For some, you might have received some of the snippets of the study in your email, but this one would be more comprehensive, starting from what we have been releasing since March when we started the ECQ up to last month. So before I start, the session will include a survey, a polling survey. So if you can also open a link, I'll give you the website right now. It's by Mentimeter. It's www.mamaechonovembertangoindia.com. So in between some of the slides, we'll be asking some questions. It's a survey for the group. We'll be sharing the results later on. You can actually see the results as you do your votes. And these questions are related to the topic that we'll be discussing for this afternoon. We will also be sharing a copy of the slides, so no need to take pictures, take notes. We'll be sending a copy, a PDF copy of the slides after the discussion. Okay, so let us start. Uh, um, if you look at the pandemic fundamentally changed the ability of people to work normally, companies to operate effectively, and markets to function efficiently. And it has demonstrated the material value of human capital and the health and contributions of people to companies' business performance and to the global economy. At the start, we're more focused on health. Now we're talking about the impact of this pandemic in terms of our business, taking into account also because of the situation where right now we're on GCQ, but not all employees can still can already go and report back to work. In the earlier periods of the pandemic, governments as well as organizations and companies, not just in the Philippines but globally, um, was I would say on a reactive mode because the speed and scale of the spread of the virus was difficult to predict. Now that companies are would have better understanding of the situation as well as the uncertainties and challenges they face, we're now more in a position to model scenarios and outcomes to develop plans for navigating the future. As such, we have entitled the presentation as Pushing the Reset Button. Are you ready for the next normal? And the next in the next couple of hours or more than an hour, I'll be providing you with some action items, programs that organizations may take in different stages of the cycle from the pandemic up to the time that we're going to go back to work. Okay, so first slide, please. So if you look at the section that we will cover for today will include employee experience and culture, work and rewards, benefits and well-being. So for employee experience and culture, how do we support our employees manage through the transition from the pandemic to the time that we plan to go back to work, and what would be that setup when it's the new normal already? For work and rewards, how do we enable productivity and output while managing employee rewards in line with contributions and business performance? As we know, a lot of organizations right now are recalibrating their goals, their objectives for the year, given that it's already almost mid-year and we had more than 3 months of ECQ, and that definitely have an impact on the business outcome. In terms of benefits and well-being, ensure safety, physical, emotional, social, and financial well-beings of employee. So the first section will focus more on some context and introduction, sharing with you some themes, principles, and point of view of Willis Towers Watson. Let me start with sharing with you common themes of employer responses to COVID-19. Some of it you might find outdated already because the survey was conducted during the early stages of the ECQ, but this will give companies an opportunity or probably to look at the programs that they have in place right now, given that some of us are still working from home or still have yet to start our operation. So the upper boxes are focused more on Philippine context, gathered from a survey that we conducted back in March 2020. So, what are the typical responses of organizations during the ECQ? Move to remote work. 99% of organizations we've surveyed will had a segment of their organization definitely working from home. So there's a capability to do that. While a small percentage or probably a small segment of their population would still be in business as usual, meaning they provide certain subsidies for them to report to work because they're essentials or critical part of the critical headcount, or I would say essential. So 99% of those that implemented work from home arrangement also provided support to enable remote work. What would this mean? No? What would this entail? Internet subsidy for those organizations who where they don't have a formal policy, or mobile phone subsidies. So around 45% of those companies that implemented work from home have also provided those subsidies, allowances in the interim, not as a formal one because they don't have something in place. So they've been providing that on a monthly basis, roughly around 800 to 1,200 pesos per month to subsidize costs for mobile phone and internet connection. 80% provided financial support in the form of payment in advance of 13th month pay. So for some organizations where they plan or they pay out 13th month pay towards the end of the year, some companies and a big percentage of those survey participants already paid out in advance 13th month pay and other bonuses or fixed and guaranteed payment. Hazard pay was also provided to employees who are required to report for work, and then emergency loans were also provided, so facilities for employees to be able to avail of financial assistance. For those organizations with a segment of their population which are required to report for work, and we notice this is typical for BPO outsourcing and financial services sector, 86% of them provided transportation, either through shuttle service or transportation subsidy, and around 70% provided meal and accommodation. I guess this is in accordance with what is required by the government as a guideline for those organizations who are required to who are allowed to report for work during the ECQ. The lower three boxes are practices that we see globally. Unfortunately, we weren't able to ask this question for the local participants, but I guess to some extent, a lot of the organizations are also implementing or creating programs or activities related to this. So for the first item, 94% preventing respiratory infection through communication. So telemedicine, that's also providing FAQs, emergency responses. As mentioned earlier, the focus of organizations during the early stages is more on employee health and wellness. And a lot of organizations are creating agile ways of getting their messages to or information to their employees. Second would be protecting physical health. So 97% of organizations who joined that survey globally increased disinfection and hygiene efforts, have specific policies to exclude visitors or workers at high risk, and so on. So typical guidelines that are also being done locally. And then, of course, protecting emotional health. During the ECQ, it's not just the COVID that we're really focused on, but the impact, the anxiety, the agitation that it brings to some employees or some of our employees, not just because the threat of, let's say, losing their jobs, but also the arrangement. I would say it's different from your normal traditional way of working. And organizations have extended employee assistance programs to be able to support employees going through this health issues. Okay, so the lower portion is from a survey that we conducted globally. The upper three boxes are for local setting. Willis Towers Watson also worked with World Economic Forum to come up with principles that we have developed certain principles on programs on how organizations adapt to the pandemic or the situation brought about by the pandemic. First is definitely we would consider the crisis as a defining leadership moment. So for leaders, it's very important for them to stay true to the purpose, values, principles, and culture of an organization. And normally those items would start at the top. And then we would say effective leaders are transparent, empathic, and create trust, and their behavior help calm, support, and even energize employees so that they will feel vested in a common mission and purpose and embrace new ways of working. Item two, adopt an agile and continuous learning mindset to ensure response is recalibrated to certain circumstances. So if you notice, even us as HR practitioners, even without a mandate from the top, we tend to look at what's happening, how do organizations adapt, what would be applicable given a certain scenario. We started with the initial ECQ that was extended several times, and we have to recalibrate our efforts, programs, our plans to be able to adapt to those. The uncharted waters of this crisis demand agility, innovation, and adapting to rapidly changing system and regulations. So you can imagine moving forward, it could also there could be a lot of changes as well. It's also important for us to understand the perspective and engage all stakeholders. So this would include employees, shareholders, customers, especially suppliers, healthcare providers, and so on. So these are things we need to be able to get a perspective on before we make certain decisions. Um, for us to keep pulse of shifting needs and priorities of all of those I mentioned, no? Given the evolving state of competitive and innovative practices. Item four, cost pressure for current of the current revenue challenge environment, because it definitely has an impact on our businesses. Probably not for certain industries, but for majority, it would have. So which place, or I would say stress on leaders to meet the needs of shareholders at a time when the well-being of employees, particularly the most vulnerable, is being seriously threatened. No? So, but the risks to and benefits of employee well-being and company well-being are highly aligned. That's very important. And then last principle is for decision making to be in this rapidly shifting and uncertain environment requires organization to resist the pressure to engage in short-term actions. No, some probably will be. We're hearing some companies are already laying off or reducing salaries or trying to look for opportunities to cut costs. No, but what we are saying is we should resist the pressure and look at the long-term effect before we make certain decisions. Okay. Now, in terms of Willis Towers Watson's point of view, the pandemic underscores the material value of health and contributions of people to business success. So, responding and recovering from the crisis is just the start of it. True leadership will be defined by our actions on how we protect, preserve, and sustain the human capital value. This means revising operations, programs, and policies, beginning by taking the best of what we rapidly introduced in the past few months, no? So we can start from there and reimagine the rest for flexibility, resiliency, and preparing also for another case or another situation like this. So this somehow uh, uh, rattled, no, yung plans natin, while we're used to the business as usual normal plans year on year. Now we have to take into consideration changing regulations, um, uh, addressing this new normal, and of course being able to prepare for another crisis similar to what we're facing right now. So beyond the crisis, we also need to acknowledge ongoing risk of another pandemic, as mentioned. At a minimum, this means preparing our organizations to be agile, doing things differently, flexible, to pivot to multiple short-term scenarios while simultaneously thriving on the long term. No, so this is the focus. So we can reimagine work and rewards to make sure we're agile, looking into virtual working, automation, and reskilling. A few weeks ago, I had an interview with a Hong Kong newspaper, and one of the questions that were asked would be the preparedness of our local organization in terms of working from home, the digitalization, and so on. And I believe while we see a lot of subsidiaries of multinational companies as well as conglomerates have had was able to adapt, no, or probably part of their strategy would be the digitalization. I guess this pandemic will push a lot more of our organizations or a lot more companies to look into this strategy to make sure we can prepare for situations similar to this in the future. We lead with practically compassion, transparency, and make work culture safe and inclusive. So focus on health and wellness, protect employees, building physical, emotional, financial wellness, flexibility in terms of cost and financing. So I guess this is the stage where we now rechannel our resources to focus on what are the key essentials now in terms of programs for our employees as well as activities. Rethink also governance and oversight of human capital metrics, emphasizing health, safety, and sustainability. Where in the past, I know a lot of organization will focus on health and wellness, but probably not as a priority as compared to base pay and other benefit items. Now, a lot of organizations are revisiting their healthcare programs, looking at certain exclusions for exclusions in the benefits, and trying to negotiate for 2021. Okay, so those few slides will give you a context of what's happening, certain principles that you might want to look at. But the next few will focus now on what are the key stages that we think organizations will go through, and what are the items that you'll have to look at, or what are the programs that you'll have to focus on. So there are three stages of actions. Businesses in many countries, are in a crisis mode, and as we expect, at some point, probably Philippines will well, definitely Philippines will recover like any other countries, probably like Korea, or at certain extent certain locations in China will recover from the pandemic and return to stability. This slide, or the discussion that we'll be presenting to you this afternoon, will cover three phases of this journey, from crisis management to restoring stability to operating in a post-crisis world. So first, managing through the crisis, although we're at the tail end, technically we're still, I would say the Philippines and most organizations right now are still at that stage where we're managing crisis in between that and restoring stability. So the first is our initial response and adaptation during the cycle of continuous learning and rapidly changing conditions. No? In that section, the focus is to protect and preserve human capital value. Second, restoring stability. It's more of resetting and reimagining operations under new assumptions, protocols, focus areas, and pace. In terms of HR, it's we have termed that regenerating human capital value or regenerate human capital value. And of course, we have to prepare for post-crisis or operating post-crisis, where the objective is to achieve sustainable operations and business model, redefining what normal means in the new environment. No, so this is the focus is to sustain human capital value. So my presentation will focus on these three stages, discussing items related to work, pay, health, well-being, employee experience, and culture. Okay, so item one, managing through the crisis. This is a stage where we react, we adapt, and sustain certain uh, programs or interventions we deem necessary or we think very effective given the situation. So the first is, of course, to ensure employee safety and support. And if we look at our survey globally, a lot of organization, it's I would say talagang yun yung focus for the first few months, no? Even up to now, looking at ensuring wellness and the health of our employees. So as they manage through the impact of the pandemic, they also want to look at supporting employees on their personal and professional lives. Second would be managing workforce, ensuring safety and the physical, emotional, social, and financial well-being as uh, evident in our survey that these are support programs provided by organizations, implementing appropriate work policies and offering relevant benefits and other programs as necessary. Item three, implement cash preservation and cost management protocols. I guess for the Philippines, I haven't heard as much in terms of headcount reduction yet, no, and that's a good thing. But I guess there are other ways to preserve cash and to manage cost, probably rechanneling our resources to critical activities and plans that we have uh, 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 were programmed to initiate for the year. And then, of course, adopting business continuity plans and clearly articulating key policies and procedures for those. So, a lot of organizations, I guess the reason why we were able to survive the last 3 months is the uh, preparedness. They have a business continuity plan in place. There's effort, there's opportunity for employees to work from home. Although I know of some organization based on our survey, less than 5%, I guess, as part of their talent segment, who won't be able to, who are not able to work, and in those cases they were given special leaves to be able to cover for the duration of the ECQ. Implement agile form of employee listening. So the traditional focus group discussions may not work given the scenario right now. So we have to find other ways of getting our message to our employees, as well as getting feedback and getting the perspective of our stakeholders. Support managers to address concerns, no, so it's very important for us, for the leaders, to be able to balance immediate needs with the ability to rebound and remain viable for the long term, no. So for executives, for managers, especially for our HR practitioners, that's very important. For the past 3 months, I guess it's an effort to juggle between preparedness, taking care of the employees' health, and also to look at the long-term impact of this pandemic into our business and what kind of programs would support that. Managing performance, of course, there will be changes in terms of our business outlook that will also have impact in terms of the expectations of our employees for 2020. And of course, last item is align rewards with business circumstances and performance. Um, I guess to first quarter or first to second quarter of the year, if you already change or you have already recalibrated certain reward items like incentives, um, this is also that probably the opportunity once you're back in the office to also look at step back and look at what's the business outlook and check whether the changes we've made for the past 3 months are aligned to what we see is going to happen for the rest of the 2020. Okay, so let's look at the different items. So by bucket of or by group of or by category, no. In terms of managing through crisis, when we look at work, so items that are marked with a triangle and an exclamation point are items you have to uh, take note of or watch out for. Items with the bullet na check mark are what organizations are doing globally, which also includes Philippines, and of course the light bulb or opportunities that you can consider. So in terms of work, there's a need, of course, to balance cost and performance objectives, especially for large population or segment with the large population or what we consider as pivotal segments, retain critical talent based on business outlook. So given the situation, we'll also have, as mentioned a while ago, we have to align and look at cost and performance for these categories. Implement safe work policies for on-site, I would say on-site safety flexibility and remote working, technological support. So given that for some of our organizations, they will continue to work from home probably until third quarter of the year, we need to revisit our policies, how to be able to support them. And for those who are reporting for work, what kind of safety measures and programs are we going to implement? It's very important for us to enable our managers to manage work and teams' performance even with this kind of situation. So gone are the traditional ways of managing people na kay we need to focus on deliverables up to that kind of situation. How do they manage, monitor performance? How do they, how will our employees be productive, similar or even better than those days that were in the office, no, physically. And then, of course, for some organizations, and I think this is very important, you can use this opportunity to reskill, upskill our employees, especially mid downtime, ano, for those organizations where your business is directly impacted and the type of products that you produce are considered, I would say, non-essentials during the ECQ. No? So may downtime tayo. That's an opportunity for us to reskill, retool our employees and continue our learning and development activities. Rather than cutting costs in that area, we could probably look at that as an investment to prepare for future for the future of the business. In terms of pay, review, redesign performance metrics and pay programs, no, based on business outlook. I guess the reason why yung bullet there is more of an exclamation is during the second quarter of the year, it might be too early to recalibrate, no, especially if we haven't really come up with a plan on how to rebound or what will be the real scenario for the organization, given that in by last June or last week, some of the businesses have already started opening up or operate na sila, no? So we need to be able to assess what's the end state of the organization before we do drastic changes in terms of performance metrics and pay programs. Um, in terms of retention rewards programs, we have to review, develop retention programs for critical talents, essential workers, no, including those that are high at risk work. So what take into account, no, especially when we create programs, new programs for this population in our organization. Um, and then, of course, consider cash conversion strategies. So, a lot of organizations right now, uh, yung mga leave, yung kanilang or mga leave availments nila, so pinauubos nila rather than sit anymore. Um, in some organizations, re-reduce ng work hours or bonus deductions, probably variable pay, especially locally. No, I don't think we can reduce guaranteed pay because our laws won't allow it. And then, of course, yung focus nun is to protect jobs. So any opportunity to reduce cost without sacrificing critical activities, as mentioned a while ago, like learning and development, healthcare, organizations are now considering cutting on those or probably rechanneling the resources such that they will be able to maintain uh, the necessary programs and of course keep their talents within the organization. Next slide, please. For health, a lot of organizations are reviewing the coverage, the adequacy of the programs or the healthcare programs that they have right now, no? To be able to adapt to the requirement of the what's happening right now. So they look at value added services, if there are I'm not sure if tama yung term ko, yung telemedicine or teleconsult, no, that is being considered, no, for especially for at-risk populations. Um, Organizations also promote access and help employees navigate government and company provided programs. So there are a lot of communications being done by organizations to ensure that employees are aware of what programs they could avail of given the situation. And this is not just specific to those employees affected by the COVID, but also to those employees that may be going through some stress, agitation, and anxiety. And then, of course, it's very important for us to analyze the cost implications, no, and cost management actions, establishing temporary claims, reimbursement reserves. So for some organizations, it may be a case where because we're under an ECQ, yung ating reimbursement claims are not being processed or they don't get to submit reimbursement claims so that hindi tayo nagugulat in terms of yung biglang mag-spike ang cost towards the third or fourth quarter of the year. Some organizations are looking at booking or I would say coming up with a reserve for those reimbursement to be able to manage costs throughout the year. In terms of well-being, there's a focus in terms of addressing specific needs such as on-site safety, stress management, support for working remotely, child or elderly parent care, financial hardship, and so on. In some organizations, so they try to provide support to employees similar to the type of environment that they get to enjoy when they're in the organization. So let's say yung ergometric chair, is that the right term, no? So some of them, they send them to their houses so they can work with the support, no, at home, providing whatever communication or organization initiative that can be extended to our employees. Implement agile employee listening, as mentioned a while ago. We have to look at various ways to be able to connect to our employees. It may not be the similar town hall or cadence meeting that we do on a regular schedule. So in some cases, organizations have to do it on a per segment, more frequent because you want to be in touch with our employees. And of course, something to think about is repurpose current and offer new product solutions, no? Like tele-well-being, promote physical, emotional, social, and financial well-being. In the past, there's too much focus on physical well-being. A lot of organizations globally right now are looking at the other aspects, especially in terms of providing support. And then last item for managing through the crisis would be employee experience and culture. So during the crisis, we have to be able to or enable our employees to connect, collaborate, and engage. So that is still focus for HR practitioners and for organizations. Implement various ways of listening strategy, keep our employees informed, and let them feel that they are supported through regular and transparent communication. And of course, it's very important for our managers to connect. It's not just HR driving that program and activity. The initiative will also come from the leaders and the managers for them to check on their employees from time to time. And what based on my experience now when I talk to other organizations, no, normally that's the first agenda in a meeting. How's everybody? Ano yung health condition of our employees? So those are the first items that's being discussed. Promote culture of agility, safety, well-being, and inclusion. So a lot of organizations, when we talk about culture, we mas yung standard na operational efficiency, innovation, customer centricity. But nowadays, and I guess this pandemic is pushing a lot of organization to include safety, well-being as part of that strategy. No, of course, inclusion, diversity has always been there and will continue to be part of the culture that organizations will promote and will be are promoting right now. Okay, so that's the first section. Let me pause for a while. We will have some survey questions. I'll ask for those who dialed in a bit later than 2 o'clock. You can log in to www.menti.com. Okay, menti.com. And then for the first question, please enter the code 33288. Okay, so that's the first question. I would encourage you to please join the survey. I know there are 273 participants right now. The more participants we have, the better, you know, and this is also something you can use as a reference later on. So for the first question, what return to work site approaches are you considering or have implemented given the announcement of the GCQ? So you can select all items that would apply to your organization. So yung first option, so there are 7 options. For the first, quickly, almost all employees will report at once. No, they're required to report at once. Yung item 2, it's through a phased reporting program. Employees gradually return over a period of time. That's item 2. Item 3, shift-based. 1/3 or half of the employee work in weekly shifts. So parang split work arrangement. So this week would be a different group, and then next week would be a different one. Employee wants to report for work, you give flexibility and opportunity for them. No? So you ask those that are low risk of sila yung unang nagre-return to work. Second to the last item, critical employees first. So sino yung kino-consider natin as critical employees and managers? Sila yung unang pinapasok natin or papapasukin natin. Last would be, depende kung meron silang medical certification. So employees who receive medical clearance to return to work. Okay, so please select from the 7 items. I hope you can all vote. 274 participants. We have 20, 25, less than 100 who responded. I'll give you a few more seconds. So for those who just joined, it's www.menti.com. Code for this question is 33288. Last 30 seconds. Okay, so it looks like majority is on a shift-based or siguro yung tinatawag nating split work arrangement. 1/3 or 1/2 of the employees will work in different shifts. Yung next two, I guess, would be yung phased employees gradually return over a period of time, and then critical employees first. Yun yung ating majority. Pero we have very few companies na all employees return to work. Okay. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, for the next question, has your organization taken or does it plan to take any of the following actions in line with GCQ? You can also select all items that you think would apply, no? Item A, use employee listening strategies via survey, virtual focus groups to identify safety concerns, well-being, and workforce needs of employees and develop a return to work strategy. That's item A. Item B, develop a communication strategy for return to workplace. So develop a communication strategy for return to the workplace. Item C, require temperature tests for employees and visitors upon entering a facility. Item D, facilitate COVID-19 testing. Okay? Item E would require periodic COVID-19 testing. Item F, require employees to use apps to track potential exposure. And last item, provide protective equipment to employees. So which of these items or action items have you implemented or are planning to implement as you go back to work? Last 30 seconds. Okay, there's a question. I'll answer questions later on, but there's a question regarding the survey. No, listening strategy is our way of getting feedback. No, so parang focus group discussion or through employee surveys. So the various ways, no, of getting stakeholders perception, feedback, or getting information from them. Last 10 seconds. I hope you take time to vote. Please, 275 participants. We have less than 100 plus answers. Okay, so majority will require temperature test, employees and visitors upon entering a facility. So yung majority, that's the typical one, no? And then some organizations, around 23, will provide protective equipment to employees. Okay. If I may ask the technical group, yung nagpe-present ng survey, there's a question I think in the chat room. How do we provide multiple answers? Okay. Third question. Is the organization planning to provide or already providing special allowances? No, this is in excess of statutory requirements or programs or policies that you already have in place. No, what we're asking are additional items or considered special allowances. So if you already have meal allowance, you need not answer because that's part of your regular policy. But if you're providing that because of the situation or probably as an interim measure, then please select that item. So the items are meal allowance, internet allowance, telecommunication allowance, risk or hazard pay allowance, well-being allowance, and work from home allowance. So what are the items that you provide? Okay. If I may ask the technical uh, support from PMAP, uh, there's an item in the chat room. How do we vote multiple responses in these cases? So if you can just respond dun sa chat box po. So for those who just dialed in, enter www.menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 33288 to be able to participate in the survey. Okay, last 10 seconds. Any more votes coming in? Okay, so around 54 organizations provide risk or hazard pay allowance. Yung next would be internet allowance. Those are I would say special allowances provided. No, so on top, these are items that are just provided now and not part of the typical programs and policies of the organization. Okay, thanks for your participation. We'll have another of those questions in a few minutes. Let me move to the next slide. Okay, restoring stability. So in this case, we're in the second stage already, no? We're rebuilding, returning, or we're already planning to return to the office, no? Return to office policies. So what are the focus? Modeling workforce plans and work redesign, no? Making making sure it's safe for employees to return to work, including continuation of relevant workplace policies you have implemented in the ECQ stages, self-assessment, on-site health checks, and other health support. Um, Especially for those that are traveling or commuting, no, these are items that are now a focus, especially for organization. And then of course defining new ways of working. For some of us, we will continue, we have discovered that working from home is not bad at all, and it's a better way of employees are more productive, no, for some cases yun yung na-rediscover nila. So some organizations are implementing work from home, will continue to work from home in an indefinite period, while those that wouldn't have an opportunity to work from home because the technology won't be able to support it, yun na lang ang focus in terms of who will return to work. So we also readjust work, including new ways of working, reskilling, upskilling programs. Given our experience for the last 2-3 months, we're trying to come up with programs to support our employees, given impact on the business. Of course, recommit to purpose, culture, safety, and inclusion and well-being as part of it. Ensure a safe work environment. Um, and then assess total rewards alignment for the future. So in some cases, I'll skip some of the bullet points because we only have reserved 2 hours for this session, and I have a lot of slides. Anyway, I'll be sharing the deck. Some of it are pretty straightforward. I'll just provide insights on some items like let's say, for example, total rewards in the interim and probably ongoing. We need to be able to realign our strategy, um, um, or align our rewards to the strategy and performance and well-being of our employees and the organization. It's very important for us to implement governance, reporting, certain frameworks to be able to monitor and track key human capital activities and measures. No, that's for restoring stability. Now we go to the different programs in terms of this second stage. Pagdating sa work, we need to plan for and define new ways of working. And typically, at this for this activity, it's not just HR management doing the plans. Our experience and what we see from other organizations, not just locally, is that they involve employees, especially the employees, because sila yung at biggest yung population at risk, no. We sila yung concern, sila yung papasok, so we need to get their feedback also. So we look at various ways and we plan our transition. And I guess as we saw in the survey kanina, some are doing a split work, others are doing it by critical talents, no. So paunti-unti. In some cases, I've heard some organizations, if they're not required to do on site, to be on the ground or on site, they can work from home as long as they want to. No, so there's that flexibility. And then of course, make our work safe for on site. So there are different guidelines. IATF already released the guideline. A lot of organizations release yung social distancing. Even yung pantries natin are already I would say rearranged to be able to accommodate and to ensure we observe those distancing policies. No, so a lot of work for facilities and admin. And then of course, implement reskilling, upskilling programs for new ways of working. Not all of us are tech savvy, and even me, not too young anymore, no. So it's kind of difficult for us. For some people, they're not used to meeting or having a focus group discussions or having brainstorming na hindi mo nakikita yung individual you're talking to. So there are a lot of support needed for that. And for those who are used to it, there are also some skills required of them to be able to operate in the new normal. In terms of pay, we need to review, redesign rewards and retention programs for critical roles, talent, sales force executives, or what we consider as pivotal roles, roles that will have uh, great impact in terms of our business outcome. We need to adjust our performance metrics. So as soon as we get back or as we plan to go back to the office, we look at our plans, we look at our strategy, recalibrate, and have a better, uh, uh, I would say, better outlook of the business, no, for us to be able to recalibrate variable pay, performance measures, impact of those to other rewards related or performance related rewards. We need to evaluate implications of business performance, especially for our commitment on short-term incentives and long-term incentive plan. We know that this has a huge impact on the business, and in some majority of the measures normally would include organization targets. So we need to be able to recalibrate what would be the impact and what we have communicated earlier, no, earlier nung taon, and be able to rechannel and focus our effort in meeting certain targets. Assess current rewards to align with new ways of working and consider principles-led approach to compensation governance. So going back to our strategy and principles on how we reward, we need to recalibrate and rethink what will be our focus in terms of components, in terms of mix, given the scenario, salary review, fixed payments versus pay at risk. These are the things that we need to reconsider and recalibrate given the situation. May not just be for 2020, but also looking at 2021. Next page, please. In terms of health, continue ongoing coverage and protection for relevant short-term policies, no? And then support non-COVID related claims. So nung earlier stages, mas focus tayo on the impact on of the pandemic. But we know for a fact, even hospitals, no, they also give priority or importance to other situations or other cases. Review managed vendors, including review of transition procedures and implications. So I know a lot of organizations right now are revisiting their healthcare programs. Tinitingnan natin yung mga exclusions that we think should be included in next year, no? So this is the opportunity for us to start talking to our providers and look at improvements, coverage, pandemic coverage, because in some cases that's not included. We need to be able, especially for health, to conduct financial modeling and analysis during crisis. No? Ang assessment namin, based on our health and benefits group, there's a possibility and a strong possibility that premium cost for healthcare programs will increase, no, and will spike because of considerations for inclusions. And a lot of our employees right now during the ECQ, they're scared to go to the hospital and avail of certain procedures. So halimbawa yung mga tinatawag nating elective surgeries. But once we lift ECQ and naka-GCQ na tayo, and probably if we move to a new a normal state already, we would expect these cases, yung availments, outpatient services to spike, especially during the third and fourth quarter. So while utilization for healthcare program for the second quarter is low, we can expect it to be higher in the coming months as we go back to normal. So we need to be able to reserve for those and other deferred care. And this will definitely have impact in terms of premium cost. In terms of well-being, implement physical well-being policies for workplace. So yung mga hygiene, social distancing, yung ating mga protective gear na pinoprovide, no? So these are items that organizations are looking at. Promote emotional well-being through employee assistance programs, no? So that can be done via call. You don't need to visit a doctor, a hospital. Um, I could imagine that there's a percentage of our population going through that situation or wellness issues. Address financial well-being concerns. No, some of our employees, especially if they're daily paid, they were wala silang trabaho for several months, and in some cases it could have also impact on financial capability of the organization to provide for or to sustain salaries of employees. So it's very important for us to be able to provide support in terms of financial well-being concerns. It's not suggesting that we provide extra loans, no, but work on whatever programs we have in place, be able to communicate what kind of support we can provide to our employees. And then, of course, monitoring emerging solutions, benchmarking, looking at market, what are the well-being programs being introduced by other organizations. In the past, we've moved from just the healthcare or inpatient to more preventive, no, wellness. And I guess there are more organizations that will invest on this area moving forward. And then in terms of employee experience and culture, we need to ensure people uh, feel supported and can engage productively and safely. No, still continue that engagement um, focus. It doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter what work arrangement they have. No, so be able to provide that. So we need to enable them, provide the tools, and uh, yung yun ngang joke ng iba, what we save on electricity rent, or we could save on electricity, water, utilities, we can probably rechannel to provide support to employees even if they're at home, no, like do we want for our employees to kumbaga, are we going to wait for them to suffer certain uh, um, cases like back pains and so on. So we provide support, we enable, we provide them the environment that an organization or a physical office could have, even when they're working remotely. Build forum for collaboration, inclusion and sharing of employee voice. So there's a need for more of this, no? While we do our engagement studies, engagement surveys, town hall, kapihan, and so on, I think given the situation, we need more frequent, might be smaller group. Sabi nga natin, agile or new ways of doing it. So we need to equip our managers to be able to facilitate these sessions for us to check on our employees. Involve them. Sabi ko nga kanina, when we design our return to work plan, it's not just something that the leaders are expected to do. We need to be able to get the perspective of the employee base, no? Ano yung mga concerns nila? Yung commute, may fear ba because of wala pa yung ano, no, antivirus, no? So these are the concerns we need to take into consideration. And of course, recommit to purpose, vision of the organization, purpose of the organization, including health of the company. So these are the considerations, programs in restoring stability. Okay, we'll move again to the questions. So go back to the polling site. That's www.menti.com. The code this time is 710553. Okay, that's 710553. You can see it on the upper section of the screen. Okay, yung question, mas forward-looking ito, no? Have you implemented or considering to implement temporary changes to work arrangements, no? One is reduce work week. Item 2 would be additional leave credits in 2021 for select employees. So yung mga hindi nakagamit ng leaves or are essentials because they need to report for work, they're part of the skeletal workforce. What are we doing? And then mandatory working from home for most employees. Mandatory shutdown, item 4. Alternate work teams in office or split team arrangements. Provide employee subsidies to manage costs of working remotely. Introduction of new employee loans for emergencies. So not something in place, ha? So bago siya. And then make changes where work is done to reduce supply chain risk. So reshoring, diversifying locations. So medyo mas malaking move, item H. Okay. So it's percentage, I guess. 32%. Okay. Six, nine. Last 20 seconds. The question, I'll answer this question regarding the last item, no? If let's say your traditional work arrangement, you have your plan, supply chain located at one location, just an example. So here we're identifying or relocating certain operations, probably in locations where walang ECQ or less at risk, no? So nag recalibrate tayo the way we operate, no? We either yun probably naka-offshore dati, ngayon binalik natin, no? In some cases I've heard let's say for example in certain BPOs, because the organization cannot provide for, let's say, transportation, yung BCP nila binalik yung voice business to the different entities. So those are sample of item H. Okay. Next question, please. So ito naman po is asking, what's the impact on your business results over the next 6 to 12 months? Okay lang kung feeling. Anong feeling natin? It's more of a perception and a feeling of what will be the impact, no? I guess at this point it's not yet communicated or wala pa tayong visibility on that. But we want to get your perception on what you think is going to happen to the business next 6 to 12 months. Item A, positive impact. Yes, there are organizations that merong still doing really well during this situation. So item A is positive impact. Item B, wala siyang impact in the business. Item C, small negative impact. Item D, moderate negative impact. Item E, large negative impact. F, not sure. Okay. I'll give you 30 seconds. It's para lang sa because we have other slides to cover. Okay, keep those answers let it come in. Syempre, walang merong no impact. Okay? So, I guess that's from healthcare business or food business to some extent. Majority will have large negative impact. Okay, around 51% of the respondents have answered large negative impact, while the next would be moderate negative impact. Okay, next question please for this batch. actions your company has already taken or considering in response to COVID on workforce. So it's more on our workforce. Item 1, freeze or reduce hiring. So pag sinabing freeze, totally no hiring. Reduce can be specific roles only, critical roles, or replacement only. No, that's item 1. Item B, layoff, workforce reduction. So we see potential layoff and workforce reductions in the next few months, or have done already. Um, Unpaid leave of absences or furloughs. Okay, so probably in some cases where they cannot work from home, walang facility for them to go to work, ubus na ang paid leave. What do we do? Provide an early retirement window. Okay. Voluntary separation programs. None of this. Walang items na related here. These are certain business realities that may happen. We're not saying it's going to happen. We're just asking your inputs on this one. No? Um, of course, everybody's hoping for the positive outcome, no. But the reality is, there might be some organizations who are going through some difficulties, and we want to hear from the group. Okay. Majority is freeze hiring. So we protect the current headcount, but we cannot add or replace probably for some. Around 27% have already or will have layoff and workforce reductions. That's for the last question for this batch. Okay. I told Miss Lean I'll only use up 1 to 1.5 hours, but I still have a few slides. I'll try to skip some of the items because the programs may be the same across the different stages. Iba lang yung kanyang context, no? So I'll try to expedite it a bit, no? So in terms of operating post-crisis, of course, in different stages, iba yung work environment. Right now, as we go back to work, iba yung transition plan. And iba yung nakikita natin in terms of operating post-crisis. Probably sa post-crisis, we'll see new ways of working. It's a combination of different working arrangement that we have experimented over the last few months. And we need to reskill our talents to be able to adapt to that working arrangement. So, kung halimbawa po, no, and this is hypothetical, field sales, we're used to visiting stores, visiting our retail outlets or our distributors. It may be a different way of doing it right now. Could be online, could be providing tools for our field sales or district sales supervisor to cover a greater territory because technology can do that. No? So these are considerations that we might look in the future. Inspire around vision for the future. Of course, with certain uncertainties in the organization, the leaders are expected to lead and to be visible in terms of championing, no? Leading this initiative for the organization. Commit to culture, purpose, values, and principles of the organization. Building a high-performance employee experience. Okay, so while we're facing a lot of challenges, we need to continue and balance. No, it's employees as well as our shareholders. We still need to continue and build a high-performing organization and provide the best experience for our employees. And sabi nga nila, this is the moment where employees will remember the organization. What kind of support, what kind of out-of-the-box programs or strategies the organization implemented to be able to cope with the situation, balancing employee and shareholders' needs. Redesign total reward strategy for the new future. So I know there'll be a challenge because of labor laws, but I guess to a certain extent that will also change in the future for us to be able to cover or to provide programs that are more attuned to what's happening around us, no, more focus on health, probably the concept of pay at risk would, while we know that the potential, maybe the potential in terms of growth can be a bit slim, no, in the next few months, we need to be able to rechannel our efforts to those that are more performance based rather than the fixed, um, uh, let's say for example fixed increases, no, na we expect na magiging mas challenging yon in the next few months. Redesign total reward strategy, no. So next will be create flexible cost structure, meaning be able to rechannel resources, be able to focus on items that are more essential, um, and then of course strengthen governance and oversight. So if you look at the steps, the different programs as we move forward post crisis, as we plan for going back to work, nag halos pare-pareho yung items na yon, nagta-transition lang yung form na yon at naiiba yung kanyang way to manage. So even yung managing work, for example, no, iba yung managing work during ECQ and what we envision would be the new normal. So what we have started during ECQ and what we're doing right now might be a baseline for post-crisis. So we might continue to be like this for several months, and for some organizations, they might find that this is a more effective way of doing work and engaging our talents. Okay, 24, slide 24. So in terms of work, again, new ways on strategy. Work safe and engaging employees by recommitting to a culture of safety, strengthening governance and metrics such as engagement, safety, and resilience. So it's not just the typical engagement index that we're using. We're now including safety and resilience as part of it. In terms of pay, definitely there's a need for us to redesign, and some organizations are redesigning performance metrics and even managing performance, no. So these are a focus right now, recalibrating, having a business outlook, the impact of our commitment in terms of potential uh, pay at risk. These are things we need to revisit. um, Allocate total reward spend with evolving employee needs and values and preferences. So there's a push for us uh, uh, to get employees more involved or getting their feedback on what are the items being valued. While in the past we're used to the typical benchmarking, no? Now we also look at employees' perspective or employees' view and be able to rechannel that limited resources to things that are very important to them now. Okay, so what used to be important in the past, travel, especially for millennials, no, travel, vacation. I don't think there's travel and vacation for the next 2-3 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I heard from yung news sa airlines, no. So where do we rechannel? What items are more attractive to them? Align performance measures and incentives with stakeholders. Strength emphasis on ESG metrics, environment, social, and governance. Yun po yung tinatawag nating ESG. Okay. For health, discontinue or continue our short-term coverage or value-added services that we have implemented for the last few months, and look at offering or revisiting our offerings post-crisis. So what will it look like? It will include probably pandemic coverage or a certain inclusion in terms of support, telemedicine, whatever other assistance that are being offered now. You will see, no, yung mga hospitals are offering that, having those included in your negotiations for 2021. There's of course review and redesign healthcare, prepare for future events. So this already is is a lesson for us, no? It could be possible that I'm not scaring and the group, no, and even me, ayoko naman mangyari, but this could be one of several in the future, and we need to be prepared. Our healthcare program should be able to have to support that. Okay, so implement financing and active cost management, measures reflecting pandemic impact on healthcare trends, evolving trends in utilization claims. So you can also look at benchmarks, look at analyze utilization claims, and there are other organizations that can do that for you, not just us. No, I don't want to market, but there are a lot of institutions who are doing those analysis and can provide support in terms of ensuring that we implement effective and more proactive financing and active cost management measure. In terms of well-being, continue program implemented during pandemic. Again, whatever assistance, it's not just physical health, it's mental, it's emotional and financial well-being, especially in the next few months. I guess that's when we see the real impact of the pandemic in the business, because for the last few and probably up to now, we're more focused on the health and wellness. No, now it's a health and wellness plus impact on business, and what kind of support we can provide to our employees, reassure them. Last item for operating post-crisis is to inspire around vision for the future and drive towards a high-performing employee experience. No, this item was mentioned also in the succeeding slide. No, but of course, in all stages, that's very important. We need something like coming up with personalized employee communication, or you can segment. So segmentation, lagi natin na-encounter yan, especially in rewards in the past few years. This time, we segment them based on perspectives or impact, and we cover certain aspect of work and total rewards in terms of communicating to that segment or to that group. What will be the implication? It may not necessarily be just by employee category or by age group or tenure. And then, of course, very important, leaders, managers, to drive health of the company, no, na mindset. In all of these initiatives, very important lagi is the leaders and managers. Rather than push them, I would rather say the term equip them, prepare them for them to be able to do their work. It's not just us HR, not us as leaders. Okay, last slide for this section. Very quickly lang po, because we've mentioned this in the previous slides. Some of the challenges and actions taken by industry and company and businesses. So on the leftmost, we have colored shaded boxes. The red boxes are those that we consider, or if you research, no, outside, Google it, significant decline in business or at risk na industries. Tourism and leisure, aviation. Again, sabi ko nga, how can you take vacation and travel? At risk yung mga industries na yan. Automotive, construction, and real estate, probably at this point because they cannot or hindi sila makapag-travel. Walang public transport for our workers. Manufacturing, the non-essentials, no? Yun yung kinoconsider nating at risk. Those that will have stable, moderate decline, probably at most, no? Financial services, education, oil and gas. Those that would have moderate growth to rapid growth are what we consider as the essentials. Agriculture, of course, food production, e-commerce and ICT because the need for technology, personal health care, food processing and retail, and medical supply services. These are the industries we think would be categorized under moderate and rapid growth. And then we have listed action items or programs for restoring stability as well as operating post-crisis. For operating post-crisis is similar to what I have mentioned in my previous slide. So it cuts across the different organizations. But what differentiates them probably in terms of action items would be on the stage of restoring stability. It would be different for organizations at risk. For some, they would execute diversitures. Uh, we need to be able to communicate and build confidence in the future of the organization. Be transparent in terms of what would be the impact of the business, and relook at our programs to make sure that it's aligned to the direction or what's going to happen to the business. No, plan new ways of working. So if the situation is not um, um, or the situation doesn't allow them to report for work, I think we need to be able to invest on support to enable these employees in these industries to be able to deliver also. Kasi yun din yung may impact sa bottom line ng organization. Revisit short-term cost by deferral. No, I don't think we can do reduction actions in the Philippines at the moment. I'm not sure in the coming months. Of course, that might change because of the situation in the different businesses. But rather than lose our employees or cut headcount, we can look at or revisit other programs or unutilized items where we have uh, uh, we're spending some of our resources. Okay, and then it varies as you move from one category for those that are considered stable. So different yung case nun. Of course, for those na nasa rapid growth, plan for new ways of working. So even if, let's say, you are expected to grow as a business, uh, the traditional way of delivering work may not be something viable for the future. No, we've tested it already. So continue our work arrangement when it makes sense. Implement other interventions like talent platforms where we think certain activities can be delivered short term by gig workers. So these are it's a play of the different items we've been hearing for the last 18 to 24 months on uh, future of work, digitalization, and so on. So these are things we can utilize and to be able to plan for our future requirement of the business in whatever uh, category you would fall in. No? Definitely at the forefront would be employee engagement communication. Very important. Always check on your employees. Any change would have change management implications, and that would be important in all organizations regardless of categories. Okay, I'll skip this slide to move to the area of focus. I still have, wait, I'm looking at the time. I'm trying to move quickly with this one. Area of focus. So if you look at the leftmost, those are the objectives. If I may, because I guess we're in stage 2 and 3, I'll focus on stage 2 and 3. I'll skip area of focus for managing through the crisis. Some of this we've mentioned in the previous slides. It's just categorizing them under work and rewards, benefits, well-being, with intersection of the particular objective. No? Let's move to the next slide, which is restoring stability. So if you look at the objective, enable return productivity and prepare for the future across work and rewards, benefits, and well-being. I'll just mention some key items. Okay, for work and rewards, definitely defining new ways of working. So we've been mentioning that for the last couple of hours. Adjust performance metrics, goals, and rewards for 2020 and 2021. So revisiting variable pay, performance rewards, our measures is something we need to do to align to the business outlook. Things have changed definitely, and based on our survey na ginawa natin today, a lot of you are expecting mga negative impact on the business. So um, even with that, there are still performance levels that are expected of our employees. So we need to be able to adjust and recalibrate that. In terms of benefits, ensure safety and health policies for return to work. That's very important. Uh, Review benefit strategy, and I guess this is the stage where we try to look and recalibrate our plans for 2021. Especially pag benefits, we cannot make changes midterm. No, I don't think we can do that, or I'm not sure. But it's an opportunity for us to revisit our programs for 2021, not just healthcare, even retirement, other programs that uh, I'm not suggesting, but car benefit, no? If they're not going to travel, how can we rechannel that benefit and make use of that benefit or that cost na mas useful dun sa employees enjoying the car benefit program, no? So we can relook and revisit that. In terms of well-being, address pandemic related safety concerns including stigma and discrimination, no? uh, I know some of our employees right now are reluctant to go back to work. I myself, syempre, if there's an option to work from home, I will do that. But we need to be able to to make sure we address safety concerns of our employees, either by providing support or communication. Sometimes it's something that is already in place, but we fail to communicate. Okay, continue financial discipline across. That's very important. It's a balance between value to employee and of course the cost to the organization, given that we know it would have the pandemic would have will have business implications. So cost management is very important, and I guess that's why for some of our organizations participating in the webinar, we focus on rather than increasing kulang ang headcount natin last year, we demand more people. Now I'd rather freeze headcount rather than lose them, no? Rather than add more cost, I'll manage and make use of the resources that I have right now. I'll protect them. No? Make work safe for employees. I'll skip that. Explore operational and governance improvements. So very important ito, no? Let's say for work and reward, simplify and or digitize HR programs. Uh, um, I guess to a certain extent, this will push the digitalization agenda happening for most organization, even for small and medium enterprises. No, so there it's not necessarily a huge cost, and there are tools, there are programs or apps you can use, no, to be able to operate normally and use digital. Review options to use hard currencies and ESG metrics in governance and incentive frameworks, no. Yung hindi variable, yung hindi volatile, yung hindi laging gumagalaw, no, yun yung tinatawag nating hard currencies. In terms of benefits, negotiate continuation of additional services. So again, as the demand increases, I guess the price, the utilization, the premium cost will also increase. But I guess this will push also healthcare providers to come up with creative ways of providing additional benefits. Well-being would be review, negotiate expiring services relative to ongoing need of the organization. In all stages, very important ang data and insights, no? So Willis Towers Watson, we always release some free studies, research, surveys. Hindi all paid. Take advantage of that. Pag nakita nyo WTW in your email, you might be thinking we're soliciting participation for a survey, no? But a lot of those are free. And some of the studies that we do, and even our competitors, I guess they're doing a lot of those. You can look and refer to those for benchmark practices, data, insights, new developments, especially in the areas of work, rewards, benefits, and well-being. And during this time when we think regulations will be changing, a lot of things are happening, there are a lot of benchmark practices and good uh, uh, company practices that you can refer to and keep abreast of what's happening uh, around, no, for these programs. In terms of area of focus during stage 3 or operating post crisis, uh, I will mention lang yung items that are not similar to the first two stages. But before I do that, because you'll be having this slide, the way to look at it, look at the objectives. No, so if the objective is to create cost flexibility and actively manage costs, look at what's being done under the different columns. So under work and rewards, that would mean revising goals, performance metrics to develop 2020 rewards budget, and so on. So that's how to read the slide. Look at the objectives and pakanan, no? Start with work and rewards, benefits, well-being. Uh, Very important here is the use of technology and process automation for efficient operations. We've tested it already. A lot of organizations struggled na nagkaroon ng ECQ, and that's the reason why a lot of there's demand na bakit na-extend ang ECQ, kailangan it's bad for the business, no? But if we have the technology in place, and it may not apply to all. In some businesses, in some organizations, the business is really supply chain, manpower heavy. Hindi kaya ng technology. Kailangan face-to-face, no? But even in our case, no, consulting, we still get consulting business. They do it online. In the past, it's very difficult to facilitate discussion sessions online, but now we're pushed to do that. Conduct focus group discussions, management presentations. We can look into that, and I guess this will push us to invest more in technology, hiring of digital transformation officer. So these are the things we foresee is going to happen in the coming months, no? Because we need to be able to adapt to the situation. Again, preparing not just or adapting not just with this pandemic, but in the at the back of our mind, what if it happens again? So these are the things that we need to look into. In terms of market data, again, monitor market trends and new solutions for both work rewards and benefits. Similarly, ganun din yung well-being, no? And there are a lot of changes happening outside and also in the preference of our employees. So it's a continuous, I would say, balancing act of what's being done outside and what our employees need. What they need during the ECQ may be different from what they need now that you're asking them to go back to work. And once you have implemented the new work arrangement, it will be a different support system program that they might need in all areas, may it be work, benefits, rewards. And rewards will not just be covering salaries, no? Nandyan yung career opportunities, development, performance management, work life is a part of rewards when we talk about the whole scheme of things. Okay. Sorry, I had to make it a bit faster because of the time. It's 3:41. We still have a few questions. Last 4 questions for the polling survey. So let's go back to that. Code now is 47620. So last 4 questions. So we have reserved 10 questions for this study or presentation. We'll be sharing the results when we submit the deck, when we forward the deck to the group. So first is, please indicate what actions your company has already taken or considering in response to COVID-19 on pay. So ito na is pay practices. So I guess at this point, majority of organizations have already given their salary increases. Based on our survey, typically it's first quarter of the year. So for those that are aligned to that policy, you're lucky because probably it's already given out. But for those on the latter part of the year, that's a question, and I guess this will be relevant there, no? In terms of pay, item 1 is salary freeze. No increase for the year. Okay, so walang increases. Yung merit increase plan for the year deferred. Okay, that's item 1. Item 2, reduction in merit increase budget. So if you budgeted 10%, probably now it's 4, 6%, or 2%. Delaying merit increase, so we will defer it. So kung halimbawa ang salary review date is July 1, defer 3 months or defer end of the year. Okay? So technically next year na ang increase nyo. Salary reductions. Okay? Yes, there are organizations doing salary reductions. I've heard, no? Although it's voluntary, but let's also check that, no? Salary reductions, temporary, no? Reductions in salary. Reduction in annual bonus accruals. Okay? So kung meron pa tayong inaabangan na 14th, 15th month or something, or variable pay, no? Reduction in severance pay policies. Okay? That's another one. Enhanced pay to those working extra hours, no? Kung meron ba tayong pinoprovide na additional pay for those doing extra work, extra hours, one-off bonus or other benefits provided. So it doesn't matter whether it's in cash or in subsidies, meron ba tayong pinoprovide. And then last, nothing applicable, none of this. Okay, 10 seconds. Okay for you to finish the survey. So I guess majority would have delayed merit increases, at least for those who have yet to provide salary increases. Would be interesting when, delayed till latter part of the year, no? Or hopefully within 2020 pa rin, no? Kasi kung 2021 di na yung delayed, wala nang increase for 2020. Okay? Okay. So, yung not applicable option daw is not available in the screen. I guess that's item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Item 8 or column item H. Okay. Question number 8. Considering changes your company has already made and expected to make over 2020, is your company planning to make any benefits enhancement or reductions? Okay, give you 30 seconds to answer that while I'm going through the questions. Significant benefit reductions, okay? Benefit reductions, no change. Enhancements, significant benefit enhancements. So it's a spectrum from significant reductions to significant benefit enhancements. Yung no change, not applicable, I guess would be similar answer. It looks like yung no change ang pinakamarami now, no? Seeing some benefit enhancement. I suppose it's more healthcare related. It would be good to contextualize the answers in next sessions, no? But here I'm just making assumptions. Okay, let's move to the next question. How will your organization compensate employees for unused leaves? Okay, especially for those na walang commutation or carryover policy. Are you going to carry forward the leave? Are you going to encash it? Are you going to forfeit that? Or not sure at the moment? "20 seconds. it looks like the answers from the previous questions and here, no? Typically, walang items that would disadvantage the employee because we're carrying forward, we're improving benefits. Last 10 seconds. And we move to the next question or last item. What actions have you taken related to health benefits, no, in response to COVID-19? A, we will review or we have reviewed plan design for medical benefits. B, we will renegotiate current contract for concession in fees or payment terms. Item C, offer expand access to telemedicine, healthcare concierge, or virtual general practitioner. Item D, offer expand access to online mental health services. Okay. So last item, no change at the moment. Okay, so kung wala pang binabago, wala pa kayong ginagawa, no plans yet, that's the last item. Review plan design for medical benefits, renegotiate current contracts for concessions in fees or payment terms, offer expand access to telemedicine, offer expand access to online mental health services. I'll give you 20 more seconds. Looks like maraming mag-review ng plan design and mag-expand, no, to the other items we mentioned in the deck. Okay, so 50%. 50% will review their plans and medical benefits. Next would be offering access and expand access to telemedicine, around 22 to 21%, 21 to 22%. Okay, so let me end the presentation with just a guide. So this is a playbook that Willis Towers Watson developed, and all the items you need when in whatever stages of the transition you are in right now. If you're still in the crisis mode and months pa before maka-elevate tayo sa next step, we have all the materials there. Programs, we have segregated them into pay, benefits, wellness, culture, and so on. So all the areas of HR are already covered there. And I hope you take same as you took time 2 hours to listen to me, take advantage of the reference materials and read through it, something you can implement in the organization. I'm sorry I was supposed to be using just 1.5 hours, no, but if PMAP is okay, we can extend a few more minutes for the questions. And thank you so much. Before I end, let me just very small marketing lang po. Yung we have a free survey. Again, it's free. Deadline Thursday. We will give you a complimentary report. This is a global survey on restoring stability, pay, benefits, and well-being. So items I ask. Okay, so we will have one that's more global, and then I'll give you a copy also of the survey that we did for the last 2 hours. So there's one that's free. We also have our total compensation survey already ongoing. It's very important for you to also get updated with the data and insights. So even during pandemic, pay, compensation, and benefits will always be something. Okay, so I'll I guess next phase is Q&A. Um, for those who gave or sent their questions via the chat group, we will answer we'll answer those questions later on. Baka marami-rami na yung nasa chat group. I'll answer questions from the group online. And Miss Lynn, okay lang ba? Another 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, 15
Yes,
minutes.
yeah. Thank you very much, Patrick. That was a wonderful presentation. It's always such a pleasure to listen to a Willis Towers Watson presentation anytime. We can be guaranteed on the quality of the content as well as the way it has been presented. So congratulations, Patrick. We do have some time for the questions. What I'm going to do, I'm looking through the different questions that has been posted on the Q&A, and you would
Okay.
see them as well, Patrick. I've noticed that some of them you've actually answered as you went through the presentation. So let's zero in on the ones which are very specific and may need your expertise to give our participants a little more insight on what they might do on a very pragmatic approach. So for
Okay.
example, there's this question on what will happen now to the performance review and merit increases this year, knowing work was abnormal.
Okay.
That's from Romel Ancheta.
Okay, thanks for that question. Again, there are several items there, no? Performance and pay. But let me, I guess that's related, especially pay is, or merit increases is related, especially if it's performance driven. Organizations, as mentioned a while ago, will have to recalibrate and relook at what would be the business outcome, no? And similarly, as you did your initial performance objective setting where you cascade that, we try to look at opportunities on how employees will be able to contribute with that end in mind. Again, some of majority, and I guess to a to a great extent, these are factors beyond the organization's control. No, so um, while I assume there will be an impact on the pay, on the merit increase budget, there are still commitments that the organization will have to deliver to their shareholders. So is that a reduced revenue outcome? Is it more of focus on cost? Then I guess even the measures will have to be aligned depending on what that outcome would be. Okay, so uh, it's recalibration. I guess parang hindi naman back to step one, ano? But what we normally do during the planning stage is something we will have to revisit now, recalibrate. Of course, uh, people expectation may change, no? The output from our employee base might change, but definitely that will have to be aligned with the business. In terms of salary increases, I guess majority have already given it, at least for the private sector, first quarter of the year. For the coming year, for those who have yet to provide salary increase, um, uh, it will be we have to build a business case because uh, there's still retention issue. There are still critical key talents that we need to be able to keep within the organization. So rather than having my point of view, rather than saying zero, let's make use of that budget uh, more strategically, no? Siguro yun yung approach.
All right, thank you very much. Now, on the talent management and talent development side, we have a question here on upskilling our employees. You mentioned earlier that during this time, we also have the opportunity to upskill and reskill our employees. The question says, please give us some examples on how HR can reskill and upskill employees.
Okay. So, siguro one very general, no, na talagang kailangan natin is look at our talent segments, no. The siguro by by age category. Not all of us are tech savvy, no? So make use, even the use of Zoom or virtual learning sessions is something we can help them, provide support to them. In a sales environment where we need to continue to sell, but not through our traditional way of doing work, going to our distributors. Baka once we have an application, a system in place, or a tool that can be introduced, we need to also retool, reskill our salespeople. Wala na yung, syempre, when you're facing a client, sometimes you can't help, the appearance also helps, no? The the communication here, we're doing it online. So what are the strategies we can do? That's a very hypothetical and simple example, no? But definitely there are other ways given the direction of the business. So halimbawa, iba na ang way of selling, or iba na ang way of delivering certain uh, um, processes may change, no, because of the work changes. Then we need to retool, reskill them in that new process. What other knowledge they need to learn, or what other concepts or functional knowledge they need to improve to be able to adapt there. Siguro to a certain extent, even yung in one of the sessions I had, no, yung values, behavior, how do you measure that now na you don't get to face the employee? So from a manager standpoint, leadership skills, that's something we can improve. No, how do we manage talents remotely? So those are the areas where we can, I guess, upskill and improve, no, train our people.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Patrick. There are actually many tools that we can use for upskilling our employees, and it need not be the role of HR alone to do this internally. We can also partner with external providers. A lot of
Yes.
webinars, a lot of online tools for leadership development as well as technical skills development. The next question is on a very, very practical mode. It says here from Paulo Alejandro Encina. Sir Patrick, what would you say is the best way to deal with transportation concerns of employees with minimal cost for employers? I heard that there were multiple companies that cannot sustain transport services long term. What are some alternatives you can suggest?
Okay. That's a very difficult question, and I guess IATF cannot answer that. But let me share this is my own personal view, and not Willis Towers Watson's. No, I guess if this arrangement, yung domestic transport, will continue, we'll have. The question is what kind of support, no? Other organizations, I've seen shuttle service, but again, it's very cost heavy, especially if yung locations, in some cases kasi may mga drop off points tayo, no? Even if you provide transportation allowance, wala naman sila masasakyan. So again, sabi nga, difficult question. Baka we have to find an alternative way for that employee to contribute, no? I talked to one organization a few weeks back. Meron silang segment ng group nila na talagang hindi naman pwedeng work from home. Hindi na, kasi kailangan talaga nandun dahil nandun yung facility. Ubus na ang leaves, ubus na yung vacation. But what they did is they find ways for those employees to contribute in different ways. So pumasok ngayon yung retooling, reskilling. So temporarily they're being trained to do something else na hindi yun yung reason why they were hired for. Only for them to be able to contribute and keep the employees. Mahirap yung transportation, talagang very costly. And I think, no, the government will have to do something about that. Prior to ECQ, transportation was already a problem. More so for now.
Yeah. I think one practical way we might address, like most companies really cannot provide a shuttle service.
Yes.
But what we can do is since we're not requiring all employees to come in at the same time, I've seen that through the poll that we did earlier, right? We're asking employees to come in shifts or only those who are critical to operations. I think one practical way to manage the transport problem might be to give them flexible time so that people are not part of, every, because transport will be difficult already.
Yes.
And then there's minimal transport available. But if they can come in at different times of the day on a flexible time basis, they can catch a grab or a ride, without
Yeah.
competing with
Or
everybody
carpool,
else.
no? Carpool
Right.
by
Yeah. Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
May mga I'm not imposing, no, but syempre mayroong mga employees na may car benefit. Or let's
Yeah.
say sales are given cars, they're not doing selling right now.
they,
So
they might provide it as a service. There's
yeah.
actually a question here for government agencies in terms of recruitment processes from an anonymous attendee.
Sorry,
Yeah.
recruitment
In terms of
processes.
recruitment processes, particularly for government agencies, what practices do you think will be beneficial for the bureaucracy?
During this pandemic, I
Yeah, I
suppose, no?
assume that's, yeah.
Well, what I see from private organizations, normally online, virtual. That still happens, no? It's still well, for those na may recruitment activity pa, no, continuous naman yung effort, but they do it online, virtual. Um, well, you need not see a face dun sa candidates maglagay ng picture. But again, you can do it online. Um, you can publish it through LinkedIn or other ways, no, and do the processing, do the evaluation remotely. Hindi naman kailangan na face to face. The problem, I guess, would be the onboarding. In some organizations, they do onboarding once a month kasi nga may mga requirements, may mga candidate requirements na kailangan provide ang employees, no, or candidates, like health check, background check, and other document requirements. Other document requirements, I guess you can defer, or you can hindi kailangan original copy for the first few months, no. Just me thinking aloud, and I think those are things you can look into. I'm
Right.
not sure in how different government with private sector, no. But I guess the process will be the same.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, great. We've actually extended a little bit. Thank you for your time, Patrick. What we'll do is, with the permission of the PMAP technical team, we'll take 2 more questions
Not a
so that
problem.
we'll extend a little bit on our time. All right. Yeah, yeah. See, I asked permission and they said, sure, Paul, we can extend a little bit. So 2 more questions. This one is very practical from Maria Elena Ignacio. How can we give hazard pay for our contract-based admin staff on skeletal workforce? They are not covered by health insurance because of the nature of their employment. Right. Let me repeat while you're thinking. How can we give hazard pay our contract-based admin staff on skeletal workforce? They are not covered by health insurance because of the nature of their employment. I think here the person is referring to contract-based workers doing admin work on a skeletal schedule. How can we give
through a
hazard
third
pay?
party, no? Through a third party. Yeah. Well, definitely because they're not covered by the company programs, no. I guess the question is more in labor, yung context, no? Because if they're an outsource, we cannot provide direct pay to let's say an outsourced staff. I'm assuming that's the reason why that question was raised. But as far as I know, even in other organizations, there's a way to provide additional compensation through their agencies. I've seen organizations where outsourced staff are given sales incentive, and I don't know how they do that. Even if, let's say, technically there's no employee-employer relationship, it's a service level agreement, but something probably that you can factor in the SLA with an outsourced third-party provider. if that's the if that's the concern with that question, no, yung being able to administer that payment to them.
I would actually agree with you, Patrick, because if this is a third-party provider, contract-based admin staff, the third party can actually bill the client company a
Yes.
special assessment for the services, right? And it will be internal to them how to translate that into hazard pay for their assigned staff.
Yeah.
Now, just in
If,
case this is not a third party, because the person who asked the question did not specifically say third party, I would
so
say,
direct
yeah, I
hire.
agree with you. Yeah, if these are direct hire contractual staff,
Yeah.
there would actually be like a special bonus or a special recognition for the time that they spent, which
Yes.
can be provided uh, specific to their time reporting during this COVID crisis. I think we would see a lot of flexibility at
Or
this point.
medical reimbursement, no? Ang ano ko
Yeah,
lang
yeah,
is siguro you also consider in if you need the skeletal workforce, why a third party to do that? I think you need somebody, but you might need somebody who's part of the organization, because that's a critical activity, and I guess for critical activities you don't put somebody outsourced.
yeah.
Baka better to do that, to do it that way.
All right. Okay, for our last questions, we need to ask people to please bear with us. I see so many questions, and I think what we can do is we can forward them to you, Patrick, so that in the next
Sige
session
po.
where we invite you, we will have opportunity in your presentation to
Or
address
will
this.
respond through email. So
Yeah,
if you
right.
can siguro you can raise your question hanggang open po yung ano, pag sinara na
Yeah,
next
yeah.
webinar na po.
Okay. Well, this last question is very much oriented to your expertise for Willis Towers Watson. So that's why I picked this one from an anonymous attendee. Companies are finding various ways to cut costs when they can. If a company, as a matter of policy, converts into cash unused paid time offs or leaves at the end of the year, can the company declare it's not converting unused PTOs or leaves in 2020 without violating diminution of benefits? What are the conditions? I guess in some, this is like they
Yeah.
did a special measure during this time. How do they make sure that it does not become a practice or a precedent that they will have to do it again next year?
Okay. Okay, I'll answer this as a as a rewards consultant. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I've had experience working in line HR, and I know some rules. No, well, if it's part of your program and policies even before COVID that you convert it into cash, you cannot just take that out, no, for private organization. For government institutions, you can take out everything. Pwede nilang gawin except for base pay. That's my understanding. But for private sector, once you've given it, and in some cases nga, walang policy, but because it's a practice, you cannot just take it back. And be very careful when you implement something during ECQ. Be definite in terms of timing as to from when up to when and what scenario, because yun nga yung concern natin. Baka if that continues until December, hindi nyo na yung mabawi next year.
Yeah.
Kasi sabihin nila, naging monthly practice na po, naging monthly practice. Siguro it would be good when you give allowances that is very clear. Let's say if we're going to give internet subsidy, this is during the duration of so and so, and we will revisit. In no way it will be guaranteed. I guess you need to put the clause, the clauses that will protect you. But again, kung yan ay part ng policies, I don't think you can easily take that back, especially if you're encashing, no? Yung carry over, if you can convert to cash, then I guess that's a better option. Kung na-forfeit naman din nila, no? Even if it's reduced cash, no? Baka that's something you can discuss with the group, the employee group that you have. Because value, cash pa rin yun against vacation na hindi mo na in cash.
Yeah, I think there are two main things from what Patrick shared with us. And as we close, we can summarize it around this. During this time, there's actually opportunity for us to rethink and redesign a lot of our employee benefit programs as we go into stability and try to normalize operations. However, there's still a lot of uncertainty ahead. So I think number one, the dialogue between the employer and the employees is important. Like I mentioned, if you're going to put in special measures for this year, it has to be something that both employers and employees understand and agree to the terms, so that the boundaries for the applicability of implementation is clear, leaving no room for misunderstanding whether this will be an established practice or whether this is specific to this time of the pandemic. So the agreement, and that's what even the Department of Labor has always said in a lot of the advisories that PMAP has been giving, you would always see that clause. This should be an agreement between the employers and the
Yes.
employees. Number two is communication. Once that agreement is in place, things have to be put in writing and in the manner by which it's announced. The communication has to be very clear so that, again, there is clear understanding between the employees and the employer on how this benefits and how these special cases will be handled. Well, folks, I am so sure you would want to stay some more and ask more questions. We are very happy that we were able to provide you this service in connection and in partnership with Willis Towers Watson, one of our valued partners in the PMAP community. Thank you very much, Patrick, for your generous sharing of your expertise, the research that you have provided. We're looking forward to participating in the survey that you have mentioned. I'd like to encourage everyone, please participate. He has shared the email address earlier for the June 11 survey, because this is how we build the knowledge base around the community as well. And the more we share our practices and our concerns, we're able to help and empower each other as HR leaders. Any last words, Patrick, as we close the session?
Thank you for the last 2 hours. No, I know it's a lot of information. If we can save the questions in the chat room, I'll be happy to answer those questions and send a summary together with the slides. So thank you again. Thanks for inviting me. I always look forward to this opportunity to talk sa PMAP. No, I normally we normally do it once a year. I do it every other year. And thanks for your time and patience.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Patrick. And we look forward to more sessions with you, with your colleagues at Willis Towers Watson, with the PMAP community. With that,
Thank you,
we
Ms.
close
Lynn.
our session. Yes, thank you very much, everyone. Once again, this is Lynn Muki, Vice President for PMAP, People Management 2020, as well as Vice President for Human Resources of the FINMA Group of Companies. We look forward to having you again in our next seminars. Please stay tuned. Look up the PMAP website so that you will see our schedule for our upcoming seminars. Thank you and have a great day ahead, everyone. Bye-bye.